Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. Hope you are all having a great day. We got a big show today, full of lots of stories surrounding the NBA. More news coming out of the dysfunctional organization that is the New York Jets, as news came out today surrounding Aaron Rodgers, as, again, that organization just continues to crumble. We'll cover that. We'll cover the NBA. The Cavs take their first loss of the season. NBA power rankings. An historic night for one Russell Westbrook, and some big news coming out of Philadelphia, as well as taking a look at the college football playoff rankings that came out yesterday as well. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show in the NFL with some more news coming out of the most dysfunctional organization in potentially all of sports, the New York Jets. Jets owner Woody Johnson came out in a report today from ESPN that he reportedly, in a meeting on September 30th, proposed Aaron Rodgers be benched. And we've talked a lot about the Jets this season. We've talked about all of their desperation moves, where they stand, how they've ruined their future, and a lot of the blame, at least from me and some of the media, or at least the alleged blame, has been put on Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not saying that's completely misplaced. We've seen how he works. We've seen the way that when he doesn't quite get what he wants, it doesn't always go the right way, right? When he gets what he wants, it doesn't always go the right way, as we've seen over the last couple years in New York with the Jets, right? But now this stuff is coming out about Woody Johnson, current owner of the Jets. He's had his own fair share of, not the greatest situations. After the Broncos game at home where the Jets end up losing 10-9. This is 1 week before they lose to the Vikings and fire head coach Robert Saleh, before everything really starts to fall apart. You could see the writing on the wall a little bit at that point. They fall to 2-2 after really what was a disgusting loss for them at home in the rain. Couldn't put up a touchdown, couldn't lead a game-winning drive. And Woody Johnson reportedly at a meeting the next day, that Monday, and said, you know what? Aaron Rodgers is done. We're done with Aaron Rodgers. We're moving on to our backup here, which, come on. Obviously, that did not happen, but it kind of goes to show you the state that this Jets organization is in. Through those first 4 games, which is after this report came out, Aaron Rodgers had been doing pretty good. Now, obviously, that game against the Broncos, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. When you go 24 for 42, it's not going to be great. He didn't show up when he needed to show up at that moment, but his touchdown-interception ratio at that point was 5-1. He was having a solid season. He wasn't having any of those weird Aaron Rodgers moments, or as many of those as you expect. And he was coming off one of his better games of the entire season against the Patriots just a couple days ago, right? At that moment, the owner said, Woody Johnson said, Aaron Rodgers needs to be out of here. That was just about 3 months ago now. Two-ish months ago, right? I can't imagine Woody Johnson is very happy with the state of this team right now. We've obviously seen all the desperation moves. At least he hasn't been able to bench Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a shocking story to me. Look, I know he is a controversial quarterback. He's a guy that has not had his best season, but when you look at his numbers overall on the year, he's got 2,500 passing yards. That's top 10. That's 11th in the NFL. He's tied 7th for touchdowns with 17. And sure, his interception numbers aren't all what you expect, but he also hasn't thrown an interception in 5 games. He hasn't thrown an interception in 4 games now. He hasn't thrown an interception since the Pittsburgh Steelers loss, the one where he threw 2 interceptions. They were both pretty bad, but he's really righted his ways. And in 2 of his last 3 games, really, he has put together some of his best performances of the season. They haven't come out with wins in all three of those games. In fact, they've only come out with wins in one of those, but I would blame the defense more than Aaron Rodgers in this situation. Sure, he's not that MVP level Aaron Rodgers guy that you kind of expected, but this is not a drop off to a guy like Daniel Jones. Aaron Rodgers is still playing good football. He's still a top 20, arguably top 15 quarterback in the league right now, and I don't understand what's going on in that Jets organization. They fired their GM. We talked about that yesterday. A shocking move to me. You don't generally see GMs get fired in the middle of the season. They had already fired their head coach. Since then, they're 1-5. 1-5 since firing their head coach, and the defense has fallen off of a cliff. They're bread and butter. What has let the Jets be at least semi-successful before Aaron Rodgers fallen off of a cliff. So that's putting a lot of work into a 40-year-old coming off of an Achilles injury hands, and it's not a good look. Now, again, I do understand. Aaron Rodgers has not been the Packers Aaron Rodgers that you kind of expect out of him since he joined the Jets. But to want to bench him when he did at this point, at September 30th, when this meeting was held, 4 games into the season, before you had fired Robert Saleh, I think is a little bit ridiculous. And I think that needs to be talked a little bit more about this Jets team. There's a reason that that teams have these auras or vibes of incompetence, right? Or these kind of put together organizations have their, certain there's certain there's a reason that these organizations are good. They're competent. There's a reason these organizations are incompetent. And when you have an owner at the top that is as volatile as Woody Johnson is, that is clearly really poorly run, is having a very tough time running this organization, it kind of rubs off on everything, right? It's a top-down thing in everything. Businesses and sports are a business, right? When the top is a little bit ugly, the rest of it is going to be. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Jets are seemingly as cursed as they are. I'm not here to point the finger at any one person. It's a huge organization. There's a lot of issues in it. But for this to be something that came out as the organization continues to crumble, head coach gone, general manager gone, I assume the whole staff will be gone shortly, Aaron Rodgers potentially gone after this season, what do you do? Because Aaron Rodgers will find another spot. I have no doubt about it. If he is a free agent after this season and he is still a free agent, not even if he's not a starting quarterback, I think I would be shocked. He's still playing like a top 32 player in top 32 quarterback in the NFL, and if some team doesn't give him a chance to be a starter, I have no idea what's going on with the world, because Aaron Rodgers is not ready to be a backup in the NFL right now. He's not that bad. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NBA, a massive matchup last night that we saw 2 of the top 3 teams in the NBA face off in the Celtics and the Cavaliers. The undefeated Cavs traveled to Boston for their NBA Cup game. We'll talk about how that one went, why it went that way. Up next, here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their face shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows are 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the report that came out earlier today that owner of the New York Jets, Woody Johnson, had a meeting on September 30th where he proposed benching Aaron Rodgers. A little bit ridiculous, even at that point, even ridiculous now, even though we've seen the rest of the way that season went. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA, a massive matchup, one of the biggest early season matchups we've seen all year so far in the association, as the undefeated Cavaliers traveled to Boston for a play-in part of the NBA Cup. We saw the Cleveland Cavaliers suffer their first loss. We'll talk about that game, how it went, why it went that way, and much more in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 20th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we turn our attention over to the association, one of the biggest matchups of this early season, as the Celtics hand the Cavaliers their first loss of the season. They'd started off the season at 15-0. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it when they were at 13-0, and this was the one that we circled on the schedule. The first game versus the Celtics, the reigning champions, the team that seemingly has no holes, and they ran into a juggernaut over there. But before I focus on the reason why the Cavs lost, I want to talk a little bit about how the flow of this game went. It was almost all Celtics the whole time. The Cavs jumped out to an early 2-0 lead. Then they went down 3-2. They never saw the lead again. They were able to get it to down to 2 points late in that game, and they were able to claw all the way back from down 21 in that third quarter, and that is something that deserves a lot of respect. This is not an easy team to go up against, and this is not an easy team to crawl back from. But the Celtics do what the Celtics do, right? And that is shoot the three-pointer like nobody else in the league can do. For the sixth straight game, the Celtics have made 20 or more three-pointers. They just kill you from range. It doesn't matter what you do. They're going to make their threes, and that is why when we take a look at the box score, especially when they shoot 53% from the three-point line, it's almost impossible to beat this team. I want to give the Cavs a lot of credit. Despite a poor shooting night from Darius Garland, who had been one of the main reasons why they made this huge step up from a middling East, from a 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference all the way to a 15-0 start. Granted, they hadn't really played any of those top teams aside from the Warriors, who they dispatched of very, very easily. Shocking result over there as well. But he goes 3 for 21 in this game, 2 for 18 at some point. That is the kind of shooting night that will sink your team. And the fact that they only ended up losing by 3, final score 120-117, says a lot about this team. I want to talk about that bench a little bit, because that's something that, aside from the big four taking, their huge steps up, obviously, you also have guys like Georges Niang, who makes a couple of big shots down the stretch. Ty Jerome, he's an incredible facilitator off the bench. He only had 5 assists in this one, but still, what he was able to do in key moments was huge. This is a Cavs team that goes really, really deep. It really does. Evan Mobley, double-double. Jared Allen, double-double. These two guys stepped up huge down the stretch. They were able to make huge stops, make huge buckets, especially in that fourth quarter. That's where you really see them start to come back. Again, in that third quarter, they were down by 21 points. They reached that 21-point mark multiple times in the second and third quarter, and they clawed all the way back to make it a 3-point game at the end of it. Now, buzzer beater from at the end of the game made it a 3-point game instead of a 5-point game, but still, this was a great effort by the Cavaliers. You get outshot at the 3-point line 34% to 52%, and you still, again, only lose by 1 possession. That shows me a lot from this team. And again, when they make this comeback, I want to talk a little bit about that for them again, because they make this huge comeback against, again, one of the best defensive teams in the league in the Boston Celtics, one of the best offensive teams in the league against the Boston Celtics. It's almost impossible for any team to make a big comeback against this Celtics team because this is a Celtics team that almost has no flaws. All the way up and down their lineup, they have shooters. They can stretch the floor, cover just about any position. They're all big, they're all athletic, they're all pretty good defenders. They don't really have a weak defensive lineup out there. And again, I'm just very impressed by the Cavs being able to come back. If Darius Garland has any kind of game like he's been playing for the rest of this basketball season, they probably win this game, which is huge for them. Now, obviously, this is the issue that they were running into the last couple of years, right? When they were kind of a middling team under JB Bickerstaff there. This is a team that, it didn't quite have that juice at the end. And you've seen a lot of big players step up. We've talked a lot about it, and we'll talk more about it later on. Again, Darius Garland stepped up. Donovan Mitchell continues to do Donovan Mitchell things. Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley especially, stepping up in this. But it just wasn't enough against a really good Celtics team, and they hand them the first loss of the year. But still, 15-0 is nothing to scoff at. That's one of the top 5 best starts in the history of basketball, the best start ever for a first-year head coach. No head coach has won more games in a row to start off their career as a head coach in one place than Kenny Atkinson just did with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there's nothing to scoff at. This is still a very, very dangerous Cleveland Cavaliers team, and you don't want anybody to forget that. This was a little bit of an off shooting night for them. They get a rematch against the Celtics in 5 games or so a couple weeks away. That's when we're really going to see it. Again, the Celtics are a team that can just turn around and hit 33s on you in a night. So that's one of the things. I'm not going to punish them too hard, the Cavs, for losing this game. This is one where I think, were expected to lose. I didn't see where the spread closed at, but this is one that I expected the Celtics to win. It's still a really good Celtics team, and I'm very impressed by this Cavs team and what I saw on the floor. If they had to play a 7-game series against the Celtics, I think there's a real shot that they at least push it a little bit. I don't know about winning because it's going to be really tough to beat this Celtics team in just about anything in any game, 7-game series. But I think they definitely push them. If you remember back to last year, even when they weren't getting these contributions from everyone, even when they were a little bit hurt, arguably the team that gave them the biggest fight was the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round of that playoffs. Still, very impressed by the Cavs, very excited for what they're going to do the rest of the season. We'll see how they rebound from this loss. I'm sure they'll do just fine. Cavs lose for the first time this year, 15-1, still at the top of the Eastern Conference, and we will see how long it takes to dethrone them. See how long it takes them to get that second loss. But let me know what you thought. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we have NBA power rankings. See where these teams stand, the Cavs and the Celtics, after last night's game. 1 through 30 coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the Cavs having their first loss of the season against the Boston Celtics. A great game for them, a huge comeback effort. They came up just short at the end. They dropped the lead from 21 all the way down to 2 at some point in that fourth quarter. They almost made it back. Not quite, though. In this segment, we take a look at the entire NBA. We turn over to our NBA power rankings for this week, our fourth one of the season through 3 weeks of the NBA season. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everyone so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 20th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into some NBA power rankings here. And starting off right here, the Washington Wizards are at the bottom. They're a team that has some flashiness to them. They've got lots of young players. They've got Kuzma. They got Jordan Poole right here, who's playing kind of out of his mind right now. But at the same time, this is a Wizards team that has now lost 9 straight games. 9 straight games, and none of them have really been all that close. This is a Wizards team that is definitely not ready to win right now. They've got some nice young pieces, some four guys that are in year 2 or younger that aren't quite there yet, but if they continue the track they're on developing, this could be a scary team coming up soon. Not quite yet, though. The Wizards are all the way at the bottom at number 30. At 29, we have the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, again, injured. You've had a little bit of a drop-off back down to earth for RJ Barrett, but still, a fun Raptors team to watch. You get some good performances out of some of these guys sometimes. They're still not going to be very good, but this is a Raptors team that can surprise you if you give them, if they get hot on a certain night. 28 is the Jazz. They've won a couple games here. They've still got, all those tall white guys down there at the bottom. They're not ready. They're not a good team. They are arguably the worst in the league. Really, anyone 28, 29, 30 could have been in that bottom spot. But the Utah Jazz, I just don't think they've got as bright of a future as the Raptors and the Wizards do. At 27, we have the 76ers, and this is a classic broken team. Joel Embiid, they had a team meeting there. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in our show, but the Philadelphia 76ers, 2-11 right now, tied for the worst record in the East with the Washington Wizards, and they've gotten everybody back. They are a fully healthy team right now. They're tied at the bottom of the league, not just the East. This is a Sixers team that I'm very concerned about. Joel Embiid has not made a free throw yet this season. That's insane. They need to get together, and they need to figure it out. Right now, they're near the bottom of the league. 26 is the Bulls. They've got some pieces. I really like what Kobe White is doing right now. Zach LaVine is having a solid season. You got Nikola Vucevic as well down there. But this is a Bulls team that at the end of the day is not that good. Currently, they're not quite at the bottom of the league. 6-9 record, but they're starting to lose more games than they win. You take a look at them, 3-7 through their last 10 games. They started off a lot hotter than they are, and they're starting to fall back down to earth. This is a Bulls team that hopefully unloads everything at the trade deadline. 25 is the Pelicans, and this is a team that I really want to believe in. You got Brandon Ingram playing some solid ball, but injuries continue to ruin this team. Zion out for a while. DeJounte Murray out for a while. They had a strong start. Now they're, again, all the way back down at the basement because of injuries, and it sucks. This is a team that, when fully healthy, you kind of started to see it in the first couple games of the season. Instead, they're back at the bottom. They're at number 25. 24 is the Nets. This is just a fun team. A team with no expectation. Cam Thomas just randomly drops a 40-point night every once in a while there. It's a fun team to watch. Not a very good team, not too many expectations. They're going to be hanging around the bottom of the league. This is around where they've been for the past couple of weeks. At 23, we have the Bucks. Giannis is so good at basketball. He is so good at basketball, but everything else about that team is broken. Damian Lillard can't play defense when he's out on the court. Chris Middleton still really has not played in more than one season. They need people to play perimeter defense. Giannis can't continue to be Superman for them, and even when he is, it's not working. We talk about how bad this Bucks team has been performing, and the rumors surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis parting ways in a trade. I can't see a team putting enough together in a package that the Bucks would accept a trade for Giannis. But still, it's something that's out there. It's something that's feeling more real the longer they continue to struggle. And you can blame the coaching staff. You can blame the defense. You could blame a lot of things. You can't blame Giannis. He's playing like one of the top players in all of the world right now. Giannis, not the reason the Bucks are at 23, but the rest of that Bucks team is kind of sad right now. The Trailblazers at 22, they've strung together a couple wins. They had a team meeting, and in that team meeting, whatever they said really stuck with the young players. The Portland Trailblazers now on a 3-game win streak. They're 5-5 over their last 10. They started off 1-8, or they started off 1-3. They started off 1-3. They're now 6-8, 3 straight wins. The young core is coming together nicely. You've got a nice pick and roll duo over there with Klingon and Scoot Henderson. This is a team that, again, not quite ready, but you're seeing a lot of young talent over there, and I think the trade of Dame is really starting to pay off there for them. 21, we have the Hornets, a team that's not quite as young as some of these other ones. They're still not quite at that breakout level, and the concern is always about injuries. But you have some nice young stars that are coming along. As long as LaMelo is out there, they still have a chance in most games, but they don't really have the talent around them to be taken seriously as a contender in the NBA. They could make some noise in the Eastern Conference if they get hot, though. 20, we have the Pistons. Speaking of getting hot, how about the Pistons? They continue to just play great basketball. The Detroit Pistons, I was not expecting them to have a turnaround like they're having right now. 7-9 right now. The Detroit Pistons 6-4 over their last 10. They've just been on fire. They really have been. Cade Cunningham not quite coming out of nowhere, but really coming into his own. This is a Detroit Pistons where everything that went wrong for them last season seemingly is changing. The right lineups are in there. The young players are all taking a step forward, and we see the vision with this Pistons team. They're not quite ready, but they could make the playoffs in the East this year, which is a lot better than fighting for the worst losing streak ever last season. Huge step up for the Detroit Pistons. And 19, we have the Heat. Tyler Hero's playing amazing basketball. Bam Adebayo's playing good, but this Heat team just doesn't quite have that same kind of Heat energy that it does. Now, it takes a little while, obviously, for the Heat to get going. They always kind of start slow, it seems. They'll turn it on later. I'm not worried about the Heat, but if I'm putting them right now, they're just on the fringe of that playoffs, which is kind of where they live. They live in that play-in bubble, and then they turn it on when the lights are the brightest, which I don't know what we expect out of the Heat. It kind of bugs me a little bit, but, whatever works for them. Tyler Hero's playing great basketball, and they'll find a way to turn it around. I'm not worried about this team at all. 18, we have the Hawks. Dyson Daniels, how about him? He's played incredible. He has 5 or 6 games this season with 6 or more steals. He is putting his name into the Defensive Player of the Year hat, while also, shooting the ball incredibly on offense, being a leader when Trae Young isn't on the floor. This is a fun Hawks team, and Dyson Daniels is turning into a star. The Pacers at 17, they'll be fine. This is a Pacers team that when everything's working for them, as we saw kind of a couple weeks ago, they'll turn it around. Tyrese Halliburton always has some of his struggles, and that's just the kind of player that he is, but the Pacers will turn it around. I'm not too worried about them. For now, they're just kind of a middling team in the NBA. 16, it's the Spurs. Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama is a duo that is just killing it right now. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing right now over there. They get a huge win over the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. Chris Paul just had one of his better games as a Spur. Victor Wembanyama had a 50-point outing a couple games ago against the Wizards. This is just a really fun team, and they're going to continue to get better. Popovich should be back soon. I don't know exactly when, but all news coming out surrounding Popovich is good ones. So when he gets it back there, I think this team will take another step forward. For now, around the middle of the NBA again. That middle spot, though, goes right to the Kings. De'Aaron Fox had 109 points in 2 nights earlier this week. He's so good at basketball. That Kings team is very okay, though, right? They've got DeMar DeRozan. They've got Kevin Huerter. They've got, they've got all these big names. De'Aaron Fox, of course. Domantas Sabonis. They've got all these names that can kill you at some point, but they're also just kind of a middling team right now. And that's what we expected out of the Kings. We're getting what we thought, maybe even a little bit better, but this is around where we expected them to be at the beginning of the season. 14 goes to the Clippers. Speaking of teams that are way exceeding expectations, it goes to the Clippers here. I thought they would be near the basement of the league at the beginning of the season. I was very not high on the Clippers when this all started. Instead, James Harden has turned into old James Harden. You've got Powell over there who's somehow just learned to play great basketball. He doesn't seem to miss anymore. Zubac down low has been a great partner in crime for James Harden, and James Harden himself passes Ray Allen as the guy has now made the second most 3-pointers ever. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to the Clippers. They've started winning in their home arena, and as long as Harden keeps playing like this, they could be a very dangerous team. The Mavs are here at 13. I really love this Mavs team. They've had their ups and downs this season. They've had their poor shooting nights, kind of what we expect. But Luka, one of the best players in the world. Kyrie Irving can drop 50 on you at any given point, and same thing goes for Klay Thompson. He's had his nights where he's been off, but he's also had more often than not, he's been that kind of guy that's hitting 6 threes in a game, keeping them in it. It's been a huge addition for them, and the Mavs still sitting at the top of the league at 13. 12, we have the Knicks. That Karl Anthony Towns addition has been incredible for them. He's on quite a roll. You have that whole starting five just somehow always seems to end up in double digits. It hasn't always translated to wins. You need some more interior defense that you're not getting. You'll get that back when you get a guy like when you get a guy like Mitchell back down there in January. But you just got to hold out till then. They're still near the top of the East. I'm not worried about this Knicks team. They're at number 12. 11 is the Timberwolves. Julius Randle hits a buzzer beater the other night. His first big, hey, I'm here in Minnesota kind of moment. He's had his struggles. He's starting to get better with Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards has turned into quite the shooter, really upped his 3-point percentage. This is a guy that, is one of the better players in the league. And we're seeing a lot of the Timberwolves changes. They're starting to get better, and they should continue to climb as the season continues. Getting into the top 10 now, the Memphis Grizzlies. I know Ja's injury is a little bit concerning, but a lot of those rookies have stepped up. This is one of the deeper teams in the entire NBA, and when Ja is out there, that's one of my favorite teams to watch in basketball. Grizzlies, very, very impressive. They might find a way to get to the top of the West with how they play. It's not a guarantee. I'm just really high on this Grizzlies team. They're at number 10. 9, we have the Suns. Kevin Durant injury obviously sucks, but Devin Booker's been playing good ball. He needs some help. He can't do it all alone, but they win when they're supposed to. It's just some of these bigger teams, when he's not out there, they have some trouble with. The Phoenix Suns are at 9. 8, we have the Magic. How about 6 straight wins for the Paolo Banchero-less Magic? The Orlando Magic went on a bit of a skid when Banchero went down, but led by Franz Wagner, this is a team that's really stepped up their game. Wagner has played a lot better than he did originally, and so is the rest of that Magic team. Obviously, 6 straight wins is huge. Most of them have been blowouts as well. This is a big deal for a Magic team, showing they can survive without Banchero. All the reason to be bought into this Magic team when he eventually comes back after his injury. At number 7, we have the Lakers, another team that's won 6 straight. Dalton Knecht just ties a rookie record for 3-pointers made at 9. He has been a revelation for them. We all knew when he got drafted at 17, it was going to make the Lakers great. Obviously, the sideshow, the distraction of Bronny, he's back down in the G League. He's doing his thing. It doesn't really matter. LeBron playing like the ageless wonder that he is, and Anthony Davis is playing like an MVP candidate right now. This is a very dangerous Lakers team, and this arguably is the best version of the LeBron Lakers that we have seen in his entire career. You can talk about 2020 when they went and won that championship, but I think I'd still take this team over that one. At number 6, we have the Denver Nuggets, and it's hard to rank the Denver Nuggets because really this is ranking Nikola Jokic, right? I saw this stat out there where without Nikola Jokic on the court, this is the worst offense This is the worst team in the history of the NBA. When he is on the court, it is the best team in the history of the NBA, and that just goes to show you how good Jokic is. He's going to win his 4th MVP in 5 seasons. He is something special, the best player in the world. It's his MVP to lose. Russell Westbrook, 200 triple-doubles. He hit that last night. Congratulations to him. This is a huge moment for the Denver Nuggets, for him, and they're just really good at basketball. Jokic is just so good at basketball. At 5, we have the Rockets. They've been my big surprise team of the season. I thought the Rockets would be better, but I did not think they would quietly be one of the best teams in the entire Western Conference, a really deep Western Conference at that. This is a Houston Rockets team that has really stepped up. The depth, the bench defense especially, has played incredible, and they're getting the scoring that they need out of Jalen Green, out of Fred VanVleet. These are guys that investments have really paid off, and the Rockets, top 5 team in the league right now for me. At 4, and I think there's a pretty clear top 4. You can argue with me about the order of these top 4, but if you have anybody else in the top 4, I think you're a little bit crazy if I'm being honest with you. At 4, we have the Thunder. They're down here because of injuries. Once they get a center back, they'll be a lot better. They'll be that dominant team, that dominant force that we saw at the very beginning of the season. They're still killing it without Chet, without any of their centers. So, not too worried about this Thunder team. They're the number 4 team in the NBA. At number 3, we have the Warriors. How about the Warriors rising from the dead? Buddy Hield coming out there doing what he was born to do and being a replacement splash brother, I guess. Draymond Green found his shot again. That bench is playing like the old Golden State bench. They've got, again, we talk about depth. This is one of the deepest teams in the entirety of the NBA. They have one of the biggest rotations. Steve Kerr has found a way to get everybody minutes, and it's working right now to the tune of just 2 losses so far. The Golden State Warriors are great. They're the number 3 team in the NBA. At 2, we have the Cavs, 15-1. Their one loss coming last night at the hands of the Boston Celtics, who, surprise, surprise, best team in the NBA to me. The Cleveland Cavaliers are for real, though. They had a bit of an off shooting night, especially from Darius Garland, and I'm not ready to count them out just yet, which of course leaves at number 1 the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics continue to dominate the NBA, a team without flaws. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that entire starting lineup, their defense from the bench, potential 6th man of the year, Peyton Pritchard. This is a really, really good Celtics team with very few holes in the entire roster. And there's a reason that no one was surprised when they went and beat Cleveland, a previously undefeated team. They're the best team in the league. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these power rankings. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the college football playoffs. The committee came out with a new ranking. Honestly, not a big fan of this ranking. I'll tell you all about why I'm not a big fan of it coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA power rankings. The Celtics back on top for the first time since the first week of the season. In this segment, we turn our attention back to college football. A playoff committee has just come out with their 3rd rankings of the season. We'll go from 25 to 1, talk about what I like, what I don't like about it, and where I think they were absolutely right and wrong. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 20th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into the college football playoffs. It has been it's been a week, actually, since they came out with their last one. And the last one, I thought, honestly, was pretty good. In this one, we're going to go 25-1 from their rankings, tell you whether or not I agree with it. And we're going to start off with a couple of them that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. Number 25, 23, and 22, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa State. I understand having a team like Iowa State in there. I even understand having a team like Mizzou in there. But to rank them over I guess, a couple teams that were left out, I don't think Illinois really deserves to be in there. They haven't beaten anybody huge all season. Everyone that they've played that really means much has kind of kicked them out. UNLV, I like UNLV. I think they're a team that maybe should be ranked, but they did lose to a Syracuse team that's not ranked, and I think Syracuse deserves to be ranked as long as UNLV is ranked at 24. I don't think Missouri deserves to be ranked at all. That's been an issue I've had since all of these rankings came out. They didn't move. Iowa State, I'm fine with. The first one that I really love and one that I think should get a little more love, at 21 and 20, Arizona State and Tulane. Both of those teams, I think, deserve a little more love than they're getting right now. Arizona State has played a really, really tough schedule this season, and they deserve to be higher ranked than an Army team. At least they're the highest ranked they're the highest ranked team that previously wasn't rated. Big fan of that, but still would like to see them a little bit higher. Tulane, another team I'd like to see a little bit higher. A Group of 5 team, arguably the best Group of 5 team. I definitely think they're better than Army. Army, who's ranked one ahead of them in the American. Those two are the teams that will be playing for the American title. Maybe that game will decide who gets in out of the Group of 5. Continuing up this list, South Carolina and Clemson are back-to-back. I think South Carolina is a better team than Clemson. Their resume speaks volumes ahead of them, and I think they should be at least one spot ahead of them there. Colorado at 16, I think deserves a little bit more love. I'm a big fan of this Colorado team. What Deion Sanders, what Coach Prime has done down there is not getting, I won't say enough coverage, but not getting enough love. They're getting plenty of coverage over there. It's Deion Sanders. Texas A&M at 15. I don't have any issues with. This is where my first huge issue comes in, and it's the ranking of 13, 14, and 12, right? 12 is Boise State. That's fine. I like this Boise State squad. They get a huge win, a huge kind of comeback win. I don't mind them being at 12. My concern is between SMU and BYU. We saw that game. We saw what happens when they played each other. BYU won that game. And I know you can't respect head-to-head 100% of the time. I know you can't. But when you're taking a look at directly next to each other, these two teams, especially when it doesn't conflict with other things, you simply cannot put SMU right ahead of BYU. BYU is a team that straight up beat them in week 1 of the season. And now you have it so that SMU is just one spot ahead. I understand if SMU is 2 spots ahead. That's fine. But one spot, you have to fix that. You have to flip them. That's my big problem there. 11 is Tennessee, and they're the first team out based on that playoff bracket. Tennessee is that 5th SEC squad, and you can make your arguments talking all about, hey, there should be 5 SEC schools in. The only way that's going to happen is if Notre Dame loses, because you're not getting a team like, you're not getting one of those Big Ten teams out, I don't think. There's still chaos going on. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks in college football, but as it stands right now, I think they got the right SEC team out. Tennessee is the odd man out for me in my rankings, and I think they made the right decision by making Tennessee that odd SEC team out. But what this also means is that Boise State has a first-round bye. Boise State a group of 5 school, and I'm a big proponent of the group of 5. I love the group of 5. I went to James Madison, one of the top group of 5 programs. If you can get group of 5 love, give me all the group of 5 love, right? Huge fan of that. But to put them as the number 4 seed and getting the bye, I think does throw a little bit into question. I think even though the Big 12 has kind of cannibalized itself, if you were being real with yourself and you put Colorado on the same field as Boise State, do you really think Boise State would win that game? I think Colorado is the best team in the Big 12, which is why I say Colorado and not BYU. I understand. I think that Boise State BYU game would definitely be close, but I think Colorado definitely beats Boise State, and because of that, I can't sit here and say I agree with the Mountain West champion getting that bye. That's just me though. I know it sounds kind of power 4-ish over there. That's just how it goes in this sport. There's a reason that there's a power conference. There's a reason that this is how it goes. And I'm not trying to hate on Boise State at all. I think it's super cool that they're getting that bye, that the playoff committee is admitting, hey, maybe it doesn't just have to be the power 4 that get the top 5 seed. That is ridiculous. That is super cool and fun to see. But also, when you take an objective step back, you can't just sit here and say that, yes, Boise State, that's the one. That's the one that is unmistakably better than anybody in the Big 12. And that's my biggest gripe with this. Outside of it, I thought they did a pretty good job. The top 5 stayed the same. I'm perfectly fine with that. Notre Dame up to 6. Obviously, that huge blemish on their record coming against NIU is not very pretty, but still a very good football team. You have that SEC jumble with Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Tennessee, where you have Alabama out on top. I don't necessarily mind that. They obviously have the head-to-head over Georgia. You've got Miami in there in the middle. I kind of like these rankings, especially the top 5, top 10. I don't mind it. I think they got the right teams in the playoffs. I just don't love the order right now. We will see how much changes. For now, the first 2 teams out, SMU the second team out once again, and that 5th SEC school is the first team out. This time it's number 11, Tennessee. Chaos will continue to go, and I know everyone in the SEC wants there to be 5 teams, and you can make a good argument for why there should be 5 teams. I still don't think it should be. I think they have the right number from the conference as it stands right now, 4-4, and then the other 3 spots split between 2 auto bids and 3 auto bids, I should say, and 1 independent. I think that's the right way to do it, but that's just me. Not the worst rankings, not the best rankings. I have my issues with it, but I think overall they're on the right path. But let me know what you thought of the college football playoff rankings. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention back to the NBA. An historic night last night for multiple players, multiple teams. We'll talk about what all of those were, as well as the other history that's been made around the league earlier this week. Stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the college football playoff rankings. Some good, some bad in there, not necessarily the most angry at it. Interesting that they put Boise State with that number 4 and the bye. Crazy. Very, very happy to see that, though. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the NBA to finish off our show. Some milestones were reached. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, some future Hall of Famers, future first ballot Hall of Famers, I believe, as well as some news coming out of Philadelphia. We'll break all of that down and more in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 20th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are going to finish off our show talking some more NBA. We're going to start off in Philadelphia before we get to the history. They had a players-only meeting. We talked a little bit about it when we did our power rankings, with the Philadelphia 76ers being all the way down there at 27. A real rough spot for them. When they started, they were in our top 10. Started all the way at number 6 for me. Instead, they're down at the bottom of the league, 2-11, tied with the Wizards for the worst record in the entire NBA right now. And there was some accountability issues. The big story coming out of that players meeting is Tyrese Maxey, a young player that's really stepped up and taken a leadership role on a team that's full of really great veterans. Paul George, of course, coming in there, being a new face. Joel Embiid continues to be the face of that franchise. Joel Embiid is the one that got called out. Tyrese Maxey earned himself a huge contract after what he did last season. Now we turn around and he's calling out Embiid. He's stepped up as a leader. He's been the guy that's played game in, game out for them. You got a couple of rookies in there. You got a rookie in there in Jared McCain, who's come in and played really solid basketball, at least down the stretch here, and it's not turned into success. Maxey called out Embiid saying, hey, you need to start to be on time when we do team events. That doesn't sound like too big of a call out, but to have the respect of the room, to be able to say that to the guy that's supposedly the face of the franchise, the leader of that team, and not get pushback from the players, not get pushback from the media, just understand, it kind of shows a shifting of who the players respect, who they want to listen to. What that shows me is that Joel Embiid, for as good as he is, his lack of playing games, his lack of being there for the team activities, it's throwing it out of whack. And I think that's a big reason why the 76ers just aren't as good as they are. I understand injuries are a real concern, and the public announcement that the Sixers had saying, hey, he's just not going to play back-to-backs, that kind of sucks if you're one of the players, right? If you're one of those guys that's tired, and I'm sure you understand. We in the media world, we understand why they said it. Injuries, you need him for the playoffs. But if you're not even going to make the playoffs, you need him to go out there and play. And him being called out, I think, says a lot about the state of that Philly locker room and where it's kind of shifting. Hopefully he takes that to heart, but from what I've heard, apparently trade talks are flowering up once again with Joel Embiid. And if him getting called out for being late is what makes him want to leave Philadelphia, that's just really soft, honestly. It really is. And I'm not trying to sit here and call players out, call people out for that, but it is incredibly disappointing for a guy in Joel Embiid, who's one of the more talented players in the league. He won an MVP a couple of years ago, stealing one from Jokic that prevented him from now winning 4 straight, right? This is a guy that when he's out there is one of the most talented players in the entirety of the NBA, and for him to shut down and want out after something as simple as that is really just disappointing, and it's not a good look for the 76ers. Outside of Philadelphia, we had 2 major pieces of history being made. We'll start off with a smaller one. How about James Harden? James Harden solidifies himself as one of the best shooters in the history of the game, passing Ray Allen for second most three-pointers of all time. As he puts it, first with an asterisk behind Steph Curry, who, as we all know, the greatest shooter of all time, has the most by a mile and is going to continue to add on to it. He's going to be that benchmark to beat. We were talking with other show hosts here with the GSMC Sports Network, GSMC Podcast Network. They were saying they had an interesting view there. I thought it was a really interesting view, and it is a big milestone to hit, right? That's going to be the milestone he breaks for his career. James Harden probably going to go into the Hall of Fame, most likely a first ballot Hall of Fame guy, an MVP winner, a guy that when he was on the Rockets was the guy that almost took out the Dynasty Warriors. Wasn't quite there. Has his legacy in the playoffs, of course, but he's going to go into the Hall of Fame at some point. He now is is in second place of three-point shooters of all time, right? Just three-pointers made. He's only shooting 40% from three. He's not going to go into the record books as the second best shooter ever, but it is something to take note of. Volume 3-point shooters are starting to take hold, and that record is just going to get pushed and pushed and pushed until maybe even Steph Curry's is just a breakable one. They compared it to the passing yard record in the NFL. You still have some old heads that are still on there. Dan Marino's still up there for a while, but he's going to continue to fall as, just more passing yards are the norm in the NFL now. That's just how it goes. That's just the era. I thought it was a very good point made, so I wanted to point that out. And lastly, the big thing that came out last night was Russell Westbrook. 200 career triple-doubles, the first player in the history of the NBA to do that. Huge accomplishment for him. He is the triple-double king. Obviously, Jokic is kind of on his tail, his teammate. He's probably going to catch and surpass Russell Westbrook in the next couple of seasons based on just how he's playing. But for now, Russell Westbrook is the undisputed triple-double king. 200 triple-doubles in his career is incredibly impressive, and that's what he's going to go down for. Obviously, there have been plenty of players that have been great at getting triple-doubles in their career, but Russell Westbrook is a guy that averaged a triple-double multiple times in his career, won an MVP for that. Again, future Hall of Famer. His career's kind of gone on a very sharp downturn recently, but he's still a guy that I think deserves a lot of respect for what he did when he was younger, when he was with the Thunder, and even for a short time with the Wizards before he kind of fell off a cliff when he was traded to the Lakers. Still, one of the best all-around players of all time, one of the best point guards in the NBA. He deserves a lot of respect to that. So congratulations on Russell Westbrook for hitting 200 career triple-doubles. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow covering all things sports that go on in the world today. Of course, we're going to get on to our Thursday night football. But again, you've been listening to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.